All right, Shalom, Yashar, Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Rachak, Wadash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders, a great millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, Shalom, Yashar, Shalom. All right, going to get back into Daniel chapter 11. It's been raining a lot, so I probably won't be able to go to camp today, so I decided we'll just jump into not another chapter, but another segment, another portion here of Daniel chapter 11. And we stopped, I think, a couple verses below this, but we'll just read back up from 15 and keep it going from there. So it says, Daniel 11:15. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. Okay. And this is around the time, from correct, was the Seleucids that were in control of Judea, because you had the king of the north, being the Seleucid Empire. I think it was Seleucid, what's his name? Nicator, Seleucid's first Nicator, beginning with him. And then the king of the south is the Ptolemaic dynasty, beginning with Ptolemy first Soter, all right, which you hear us often mention, Ptolemy first Soter, as well as Antiochus IV Epimenides, but not so much the other guys. But anyways, so it says, verse 16 says, but he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. And the glorious land is talking about, Judea, all right? Because remember, Syria is to the north of us, and Egypt is to the south of us, the king of the north, the king of the south. So when they're going to war one with another, they're constantly passing through our lands. They have to pass through the area of Judea. So we were wedged right in between the two. All right, so we suffered greatly, all right, and we were constantly under that power struggle of the north controlling Judea, then the south controlling Judea, and through the different wars, right? So verse 17 says, it says he shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. So this is talking about Cleopatra the first, Syra, or Syra, however you want to pronounce it, Syra. She was the daughter of Antiochus III, okay, who's the current guy, we're speaking about, Antiochus III. I think they also call him Antiochus the Great. So she was the daughter of Antiochus III, all right, and she was given to she marries Ptolemy the fifth Epiphanes, right? Or Ptolemy the fifth Epimenides. Okay. So yeah. So that daughter of women is talking about Cleopatra the first, Syra, daughter of Antiochus the third, who was given to Ptolemy the fifth. Okay. So it says, that she's where is it? Okay, he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. And it's talking about her father, that is, not Ptolemy the fifth. All right, she basically, with all matters, sided, pretty much with her husband she was married to, which is typical of a woman. All right, pretty sure we've all experienced it. I've experienced it. Okay, it could be I don't know, a sister. All right, she get with a man, she'll change on you. Okay, so I mean, but that's a natural thing with women. All right, so she was siding with her husband and not with the father, not the father. Okay, verse 18 says, after this shall he turn his face unto the isles and shall take many. All right, and so those are those cities, off the, basically the cities that are stationed on the coast. All right, so it says, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. Okay, so this guy was talking about his Lucius. I think it's Cornelius Scipio. Right, we can see the names. So verse 19 says, oh yeah, another thing I didn't show you in the first one, I'll show you now. Because if you go into this chapter and you pull up the AMP version, all right, you'll notice there are things here. Look, like in verse 4, it says Alexander, all right, king of the south, Egypt. Okay, so there's, look, we talked about the agreement, which was what marriage is. Actually says marriage. So there's certain, look, there's a daughter, Berenice. We talked about her right in the last session. All right, there is Ptolemy third, Euergetes the first. So we talked about all these things. Okay, so there's certain things. Look, another one right there. Ptolemy fourth, Philopator of Egypt. So and I would have done split screen, but this device doesn't do split screen. That's my other device, and obviously I'm not in it, because if I was in it, I'd do the split screen to show you there the KJV as well as the AMP as we read. But it's a great tool in this chapter. Now, of course, you still have to understand, and understand certain things. All right. So look, so there you go, daughter Cleopatra the first. Now here it says Lucius Scipio Asiaticus of Rome. So, just look into those things for yourself. That's why I keep saying, just get the basic understanding of the chapter and then build layers, because there's a ton of history packed into Daniel chapter 11. Because remember, Daniel had the vision. He fasted for 3 weeks, and then Gabriel was sent to him. So Daniel actually understood, believe it or not. More than likely, Daniel actually understood what the chapter 11 was going to. He got the vision and he was kind of jacked up about it. And then Gabriel came to him to give him the understanding. So he already so this chapter is not just saying what Daniel's vision was. It's actually the breaking down of Daniel's vision, because that's what Gabriel came for. Okay, because Daniel had the vision already. So Gabriel came to give him understanding of the vision. So Daniel understood all this history. It's just that, once again, you have to understand, these men were seeing the future a lot of times. And sometimes they would see the past, present, and future all at the same time. So of course it would jack you up. Okay. So Daniel actually, all this whole chapter 11, Daniel understood these things. All right. That's why he went into fasting. All right. And then Gabriel was sent unto him to give him the understanding. See? So I just wanted to show you that and point that out to you, because it can be a good tool, all right, for you to use. Okay. But just make sure that you're still doing the proper, research and stuff like that, so you can make sure all the names and all the things line up. All right. Because the blue letter can't make mistakes. So we go back to 18. It says, after this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. And note again, everything we're reading pretty much is talking about wars. That's why you keep saying over and over and over, build the layers, right? Because when you go into the things behind the scenes, there's lots of it. We would never, we'd be taking quite a few days, all right, to get through all of this information, because there's so much you can pull up. All right, so you just go back individually and look at back history and stuff like that to get a deeper understanding of things that were going on around these times. But these are all, the main key players, and these are all battles that will fall, all right, between the north and the south, and us wedged in between. So verse 19 says, then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Okay. So, and that's pretty much the death of Antiochus the third, because that's what it's referring to. Okay. Um, so, because because he was going back home. Okay. Which is Syria. All right. And on his way home, he was, going in there and just kind of plunging, pillaging the temples. All right, along the way, and so he was actually killed in one of the temples of Baal at this place named Elmias. All right. So yeah, that was the end of Antiochus the third. Okay, and because I mentioned something earlier, let me see if I can pull up. Do I have any books here? Oh, yeah, I do have one. All right, so let me go real quick. I'm not even sure if I even have to read this. Okay, yeah. So First Maccabees chapter 8 verse 6. How also Antiochus the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots and a very great army, was discomfited by them. So this is that history there that we just read about, going to the death of Antiochus the third, right? So it says how also, this is First Maccabees chapter 8 verse 6. How also Antiochus the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 100 excuse me, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots and a very great army, was discomfited by them, and how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which was agreed upon in the country of India and Media and Lydia and of the goodliest countries, which they took of him and gave to King Eumenes. Okay, because he's another character that pops up around this time. It says, moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them, and that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them slew many of them, and carried away captives their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their servants unto this day. All right. So we'll probably start reading right there. Uh, yeah, yeah, that's probably good enough right there. I got two of these. I think I was right here. Right. So yeah. So once again, you see that he came up with the elephants and everything else, and he pretty much on his way back home. All right, was trying to plunder one of the temples of Baal, and he got killed. All right. Um. So moving on to verse 20, it says, "Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes." All right, a raiser of taxes. This is Seleucus Philopator the Fourth. Okay, the raiser of taxes. All right, he was tributary to the Romans, so he raised them taxes to pay them bosses. All right. So it says, then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Now, when it says few days, note that it's not really talking about a few days. Okay, with biblical time periods, all right. Like we talked about the 70 weeks, all right. That was a major time period, okay. Or 7 days can sometimes be just symbolic or whatever. So it's not really 7 days, all right. It could be 7 years, like with Nebuchadnezzar, all right. Seven. I think it says 7 times or something like that. Seven weeks, something. All right, but you get the point though. So when it says a few days, all right, the few days was actually 12 years, all right, to be exact. All right, he was only in power for 12 years. He was assassinated by this guy named Heliodorus. Okay, um, yeah, because that's what it says right here. It says, but within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle, because he was taken out by a ninja. Okay, he was assassinated. Okay, so verse 21 says, "And in his estate shall stand up a vile person." All right, you can guess what this vile person is. It is a key person in our history. Okay, um, from 175 to 64 BC. This is talking about Antiochus the fourth. All right, as the world has him, Epiphanes. All right, which means glorious or illustrious or some other stuff too. But our people know him as Epimanes, which means madman, and it's even some of his own people called him madman because he was just that. He was a straight demon. Okay, so this is talking about Antiochus the fourth Epimanes coming into power. All right, which he reigned for 11 years. Okay, so it says, "To whom they shall not give the honor," and I believe we've gone into it before. The death of him. All right, ooh, bittersweet. All right, very bittersweet. You can read about it. It's also in First Maccabees, but the better version is Second Maccabees. I believe it's chapter 9. Read that, okay? Get you a good joyous laugh today, okay? Going into this devil here. Um, so it says, "To whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom." Okay, it says, "But he shall come in peaceably," and I'm saying the kingdom by flatteries. Yeah, because the kingdom was supposed to go to the one named Demetrius. And so what he did, which was typical, not saying this was the Roman Empire, but speaking on like the ancient Roman Empire, it was typical for people to, like when you go into the, what would they call, the triumvirate, all right? They use their political, backing, their liking of, basically playing on the people and getting the people behind them and those that are in power riled up and behind them. That's exactly what he did. Okay, he took this time of turmoil about the throne to flatter his way and gain the word's prestige, but gain the favor. There's a better word, a more simple word, favor of the people. All right, so he kind of usurped his way into uh, the throne. All right, so yeah, and that was usurping, Demetrius, all right, into the throne. Okay, and it speaks about um, he's also in. We can go to First Maccabees, chapter 1. Yep, right here. So after Alexander's death, right after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. Speaking of his generals, the war of the Diadochi, so did their sons after their many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes. All right, so this is going to the Seleucid Empire. As we're going through this chapter, a lot of men are coming up to power right now. We're coming into the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, the fourth Epiphanes. All right, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. Okay, so and we'll have to. And this is a heavy chapter. I love going to this chapter. Um, like that. All right, so bam. So yep. So going back to attain the kingdom by flatteries, verse 22. So it says, and with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yeah, also the prince of the covenant. Okay, and I was referring to uh, Ptolemy the sixth. Okay, Ptolemy the sixth. Right. So verse 23 says, and after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. And that's what we just talked about there. All right. Him coming up deceitfully is what we just spoke about. Him, with the flatteries, him pretty much gaining favor from the people, and, empowering, the people in general, and just kind of usurping Demetrius to the throne. And he came into power. Okay. And Ptolemy six, he conquered Ptolemy sixth and set him up as, pretty much as a ruling king, or I don't know, I guess we can call him a puppet king, really. Okay, um, because what he was doing, he was stirring up a lot of noise, and he didn't want, the Romans to get involved, so he allowed Ptolemy the Sixth to continue reigning as king, but he wasn't really the one that was in power. All right, Ptolemy the Sixth was conquered. Okay, so it says, verse 24 says, he shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil, and riches. Yeah, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. All right, and what the history we're going into is when he attacked Egypt. Okay, he attacked Egypt the first time, and then he attempted to attack Egypt a second time, and that's where pretty much the Romans got involved. All right, you had this guy named Caius. I think his name was Caius. Okay, Caius. Oh no, Gaius. Okay, Gaius something something. These heathen names. All right, but you can look them up though. Gaius is the one who where you hear about drawing the line in the sand. So he drew that line in the sand, which was a circle around Antiochus, and told him, all right, we need an answer, all right, before you leave this circle. Because if you step outside of this circle and don't give us an answer, you're basically saying that, hey, I'm finna war with Rome. All right, let's go. Let's get it. All right, so we need an answer from you that you're gonna stop your attacks on Egypt. This is the second time he was about to go attack Egypt again, because he was trying to conquer that. All right, and take that little authority, that power there. Okay, which is also history. If I'm correct, you can read about in the War of Diadochis. Actually, well, yeah, you probably read about it. In the earlier, not exactly Titus fourth, but there's a lot of history there. So let's just keep going. But yeah, so he drew the line in the sand. Was like, all right, so you're gonna stop attacking Egypt, okay? Because if you step outside this line and you haven't given us a definitive answer that you're not, or that you're gonna stop attacking Egypt, that means that you're not gonna stop attacking Egypt, which means you're also gonna go to war with Rome. And you don't want to go to war with Rome, okay? So that's what happened there. He had to stop that second, attempt, on Egypt, and which on his way home he was pissed off. He was super furious, and he took out that anger on us, the pleasant land, because once again we're wedged in between. So he took that anger out upon us. So it says, he shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places, okay, um, other provinces, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches, yeah, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And we actually just read, all right, some other history there, but we keep going from now. So verse 25 says, and he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. All right, and that's what we just spoke about, attacking Egypt those 2 times. And the second time, Rome was like, nah, we stopping this. And so they sent Gaius, you know, to handle that matter. So it says, with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, right? Because remember we talked about he took down Ptolemy the sixth, but allowed him to continue reigning. All right, so he wouldn't alarm the Romans, but they still caught wind of it anyways upon that second attempt. It says, for they shall forecast the devices against him. Okay, and if you go back to, because I just mentioned that, right? Well, First Maccabees, chapter 1, and because when we go down to here to this history, all right, because he got stopped um from attacking Egypt the second time to kind of fully take over. He was pissed off. He was super pissed off, and he took out that anger on us. So if you go back to First Maccabees chapter 1, verse, you could probably start at 16. Yeah. It says, now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt. See, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Okay. So it says, wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy. See, it says, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt, which is who? Ptolemy the sixth. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. And obviously, he eventually took him captive, but allowed him to still reign. Once again, it was about not alarming the Romans about what he was doing, but they caught wind of it. All right, when he was going for that second win. So it says, thus they got strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. All right, he returned again. You see, the second time he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. Okay, because after he was stopped by the Romans, right, that circle, that line that was drawn in the sand around him, he was stopped from attacking Egypt the second time. He was super pissed off and angry, and he took all that fury out on us. All right. It says, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censer of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre and spoken very proudly. And once again, I will say, go and read, all right, chapter 9, all right, in the second Maccabees, man, okay, because what was done here, he greatly paid for, because he put hell, super hell on our people. Right, the temple is one thing, but then he started coming against the men, the women, the children, the infant babies, the pregnant women, all of that. Okay, killing people on the Sabbath day, killing people that weren't even fighting back. Okay, so he got paid back. Make sure you read that chapter. All right, that was justified, very justified. Okay, the water Yahweh Shema Shah. Let's keep going. It says, therefore, there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. Okay? And if you keep reading on, you go and read about all the things that we spoke about, all right? Going, killing the people and the children and, all these different things, man. Okay? So, yeah. A straight demon, man. Right, a madman. Right, like his name says, Epimanes, madman. So it says, he shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against them. Okay, yeah, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. Okay, so we just read about about a lot of that history there. Okay, going back to Maccabees. So moving on to verse 27 says, and because remember, Daniel, all these different wars, these years of wars are being broken down by the angel to Daniel, and then the actual accounts of it are in the Apocrypha. Okay, so Daniel and the Apocrypha, all right, are very heavy understanding this history here. Okay, because at Daniel's time, these were times to come. All right. So it says, verse, yeah, verse, no, 27 says, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief. All right, because you had the two brothers, Ptolemy six, Philometer, and Ptolemy the eighth. All right, Euergetes the second. So they basically decided that we're going to co-rule in Egypt, so we're not fighting one another. Okay, and alarming what we've done, Rome about what we've done here, and we'll set up Ptolemy the sixth, and so on and so forth. All right, but ultimately, even both of them wanted to go to each other's necks. All right, so it says, because they both wanted the full power. All right, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table. You see, so it says, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. All right, so those two was talking about the brothers Ptolemy six Philometer and Ptolemy the eighth, Euergetes the second. So verse 28 says, then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. Right. So, and that's what we just read there. Same piece we just read there back in Maccabees. All right. He was going back to his own land, pissed off. Okay. And he took Antiochus Fourth Epimanes, that is, took his anger out. All right, on um us. All right, on Judea. Okay. So it says yeah, hold on, I have the door. Bear with me. Okay, where was I think 29 says at the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. Speaking of the same history there, the first time he attacked Egypt and the second time. All right, but he was stopped and he got pissed off on his way back home, and then he decided to take his anger out on us when he got back to Syria. Um, because the Romans, remember, the Romans stopped them from attacking Egypt the second time. Okay, kind of because they kind of caught wind of what he was doing there. Um, so yeah, it says, for the ships of Chittim shall come against him. All right, once again, it's the same thing. It's talking about the Romans. We started talking about that circle that was drawn around him, the line in the sand. All right, all those different things there. All right, it says, for the ships of Chittim shall come against him. It says, therefore, he shall be grieved and return. All right, and have indignation against the holy covenant. So it's the same thing over and over, the same history over and over and over. All right. It's talking about him taking out his anger upon us. All right. Judea. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And when you go back, that was actually up above what we read before. Okay. Because there's a lot of heavy history here. When you go back up to verse, yep. So it says, verse 11. It says, in those days, First Maccabees 1 and 11, those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. So you had basically wicked Israelites who forsook the Holy Covenant. All right. And this is a very important history to understand, because if you don't understand this here, what's in this chapter here, you don't understand the New Testament. Because when eventually what happens is that the Hasmonean dynasty comes up, beginning with Mattathias, right? And he passed the torch on to his sons, mainly Judas being their head, all right? So those are the ones that fought for sticking to the covenant. Those are the circumcision, the Jews of Judea in the New Testament. Those Pharisees and all those other Israelites, all right? Peter was a part of it, Acts chapter 10 and 11, dealing with Cornelius, because Cornelius was an Israelite, but he was a Gentile. So he was a product of those here that we're reading about that forsook the Holy Covenant. So that's why in the New Testament they're being called Gentiles. They're being called heathens by their own people, okay? Because they forsook the ways of the Lord, all right? They gave away with the law and everything to do after the manner of the Greeks. So you had Israelites in the New Testament who were descendants of these very same people here. But of course, some of them believed, all right? They just didn't have the understanding. So that door was opened up by Yahushua telling Paul, all right, to do that ministry. But it had to begin with the head of the church, which was Peter. And he chose Cornelius, all right, because Cornelius was said to be a devout man, all right? So, yeah. So that's that history there. But to get not to get too far off, says so this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license, meaning permission, to do after the ordinances of the heathen. See, now you understand why they were being called heathens, why they were being called Gentiles. All right. And there's a portion in Second Maccabees where it says that they weren't even able to call themselves Jews. So what would our people have to call themselves? Greeks, man. Okay. You had Greek-speaking Jews, those that knew they were Israelites, but they spoke, the Greek language. They grew up in other territories, right? So on and so forth. They didn't grow up in Judea. They didn't grow up, having and learning and knowing and keeping the law. See? So that was the tension. And that was all between Southern Kingdom Israelites, so-called Negroes, West Indians, and Haitians. All right? Those were the Jews of Judea and those Gentiles. All right? The scriptures talk about the gospel being preached to them first. Okay, but let's keep going because I know get, you get into it sometimes. So it says, then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised. All right, and forsook the holy covenant. Okay, so in which there's two circumcisions, a physical one. I think the term is epispasm, or something like that. The apostle Ramla brought it out quite a few times. Where you actually physically sew back on your foreskin, but it's more so dealing with the spiritual circumcision, right? You in your mind, what is your decision towards the Lord in your mind, all right? In your spirit or whatever. It says, and made themselves uncircumcised by what? Forsaking the holy covenant. You see, and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief. There you go. And then it goes back down to the history that we actually just read there. Okay, so you see how it's the same thing. The angel was breaking everything down to Daniel, and all excuse me, and all the history was expounded on in the Apocrypha. So it says, you see what verse? Is it verse 30? Yeah. For the ships of Chittim shall come against them, therefore he shall be grieved. So that was the Romans stopping him from attacking Egypt the second time. It says, therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. It says, so shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant, which is exactly what we just read there. Okay. Um, it says, and arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that make it desolate. And we also just read about that very same history. It's the same thing. Okay. And there was another character that played a part in this, who was known as Jason the high priest. Okay. Because he led a revolt, and it ended up very, very bad for Israel. Okay. Let me get this real quick. Okay, because of this idiot here. Okay. So look at Maccabees chapter 5 verse 1. So it says, about the same time Antiochus prepared his second voyage into Egypt. You see, same history, right? So it says, and then it happened that through all the city, for the space almost of 40 days, there were seen horsemen running in the air, in cloth of gold, and armed with lances, like a band of soldiers, and troops of horsemen in array, encountering and running one against another, with shaking of shields, and multitude of pikes, and drawing of swords, and casting of darts, and glittering of golden ornaments, and harness of all sorts. Wherefore every man prayed that apparition might turn to good. Okay, so they were getting shook up about what they were seeing. So it says, now, when there was going forth a false rumor, as though Antiochus had been dead. All right, so here we get into it right here. It says Jason took at the least 1,000 men and suddenly made an assault upon the city, and they that were upon the walls being put back, and the city at length taken Menelaus fled into the castle. So there was a false rumor going about that Antiochus was dead, and Jason the high priest, all right, led up a revolt. Okay, and this ended very, very nasty for Israel because of this one guy. So it says, but Jason slew his own citizens. Look at this dude, man. without mercy, not considering that to get the day of them of his own nation would be a most unhappy day for him. Because you know better than these heathens, man, that are warring against one another, all right, and jacking us up at the same time. But thinking, and you're actually worse because we're your own people, but thinking they have been his enemies and not his countrymen whom he conquered. So he was just a demon, man. It says, howbeit, for all this he obtained not the principality, but at the last received shame for the reward of his treason, and fled again into the country of the Ammonites. So he had to get up out of Dodge. It says, in the end, therefore, he had an unhappy return, being accused before Aretas, the king of the Arabians, fleeing from city to city. So there was no rest from him. All right, he was like Esau, so he got the same treatment as Esau. All right, he had to be a fugitive, a vagabond. He kept fleeing from city to city, pursued of all men. You see, hated as a forsaker of the lost. You see, and being because you attacked your own people, you dummy. All right, you didn't think about what you were doing, so you were seen as a forsaker of the lost. So nobody wanted you. It says, in being had in abomination as an open enemy of his country and countrymen, he was cast out of out into Egypt. Because if you went to another country, it could be some heathens, man. They hear about what you did to your own people, like, well, shoot, man, he might do the same thing to us. Nah, get out of here, man. Okay. Thus he had driven many out of their country, perished in a strange land, retiring to the Lacedaemonians, Lacedaemonians, and thinking there to find succor by reason of his kindred. Now I probably looked that up on my own, all right, to get more understanding of who they are. All right, but as for now, we just keep going. So we want to just get this basic information. It says, and he that had cast out many unburied had none to mourn for him, nor any solemn funerals at all, nor sepulchre with his fathers. Now, when this that was done came to the king's car, he thought that he thought that Judea had revolted. You see, it was because of Jason, right? He thought that Judea had revolted, whereupon, removing out of Egypt in a furious mind, he took the city by force of arms and commanded his men of war not to spare such as they met. So whoever you saw, get them, and to slay such as went up upon the houses, because Israelite houses had we had 2 stories and we had flat roofs, so we can go on top of the roof. Okay, not like today Esau, you can't sit on your damn roof. Okay, it's slanted. All right, and a cop might even say something to you. What the hell you doing in the roof, boy? Okay. So you natural Israelite houses, which were single houses, not apartment buildings, they had flat roofs, and we had, usually had 2 stories. Okay. Anyways, because on the roof, you would lay, maybe rugs and stuff, or some of your like crops, certain ones they had to dry out in the sun and stuff. You could put that on the roof. So there was different, things. Hey, even Peter, because we talked about Acts chapter 10 and 11, right? Peter, when that vision jacked him up, he went on the roof, messed up in the brain, like, what the heck did I just see? I know this can't be talking about some eating doggone food, some abominable foods here. So Peter was, what did he do? He went up on the roof, showing you that the roof was flat. All right, other topic, side note. He commanded his men of war not to spare such as they met, and to slay such as went up upon the houses. Thus there was killing of young and old, you see, making a way of men, women, and children, slaying of virgins and infants. Just no mercy, man. And there were destroyed within the space of 3 whole days 80,000, right? 80,000. So a score is 20. So 40 is 20. So that would be what? 80,000 is actually, I'm sorry, it says 4 score, all right? Because the score is 20, so 24, 60, 80,000, all right? So 4 scores is 80, so 80,000, all right? 3 whole days, 80,000 were of 40,000, right, were slain in the conflict, and no fewer sold than slain. So there you go. So, uh, um, um, I guess you had those that were sold, away in certain captivities, and certain ones that were just put to death, man. Okay. So it says, yet was he not content with this, but presumed to go into the most holy temple of all the world. Menelaus, that traitor to the laws and to his own country, being his guide, all right, see, another demon, all right, being his guide, and taking the holy vessels with polluted hands and with profane hands, pulling down the things that were dedicated by other kings to the augmentation and glory and honor of the place, he gave them away. And so haughty was Antiochus in mind that he considered not that the Lord was angry for a while for the sins of them that dwelt in the city, and therefore his eye was not upon the place. So, and we actually read some history there in First Maccabees about him, going and taking down the temple. I don't think we got down to that, but it's in that same chapter. It's a heavy chapter, man. That first chapter, man. Okay, you gotta have an understanding of that chapter. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it there. Verse 18, I guess. For had they not been formerly wrapped in many sins, this man, as soon as he had come, had forthwith been scourged and put back from his presumption, as Heliodorus was from Seleucus the king sent to view the treasury. So yeah, that was that heavy history there, right? Because of Jason, all right? So we go back um to what verse are we in? We're at 31. An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that make it desolate. And remember, we went into that already. Then you prophesied about that. Was that in the 8th chapter? It's in the 8th or 9th chapter, but then you prophesied about that. Yahushua even spoke about the time to come too, which was 70 AD. All right, and but this time was talking about the because those are two different events. 70 AD was one thing, but then the other event was when Antiochus IV came and polluted the sanctuary and the temple. Okay, so those are two different windows of time there. All right, so you don't get mixed up. Verse 32 says, "And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their power shall be strong and do exploits." Now this, all right, is where the history, because we just read about the wicked Israelites that forsook the Holy Covenant and made league with these heathens. Okay, but then you have, all right, Mattathias coming up. So this is going into the rest of the events of First Maccabees chapter 1, and then you move into First Maccabees chapter 2, where Mattathias comes into the picture, and he's like, "Hell no, we're not doing this." Okay, so he killed that messenger that came, all right, to try to persuade, the Israelites to sacrifice and worship, to the, I think it was the Zeus, all right. So he killed that messenger and he killed an Israelite right there on the altar. He was like, "Nah, we about to get busy, okay? We standing for the Lord, okay?" So Mattathias, revolted, okay, and that's where the Hasmonean period, revolts begin, all right. The Maccabean revolt, right, as you hear in history, begins with Mattathias, and eventually, he's going back to to the spiritual realm. So he left, the strength of those forces into Judas Maccabees. All right. So we're moving to that time period there. That's why it says, and shall be. So it says, but the people that do know their power, those that stuck to the covenant, shall be strong and do exploits. That's the Maccabean revolt. Revolt. Okay. Verse 33 says, "And they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days." All right. Once again, going into all the wars and things that were going on. Okay. That was fought between, the Maccabees and these devils here. So it says, now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping, which hoping means to help, hoping with a little help. But many shall cleave to them with flatteries, and some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them and to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. Let's just talk about the children of Israel, right? So it says, verse 36 says, "And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god." Yeah, because this dude thought he was a god, right? He deemed himself to be a god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, which the Heavenly Father Yahweh. So he's blaspheming the Heavenly Father Yahweh first and foremost, right? Number one thing, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, right? But he also set himself above his own gods that he served, right, and above anyone else, right? So he's deeming himself to be a god. So it says, "For that is determined shall be done." Verse 37 says, "Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers." See, that's what we just talked about. Not even his own gods he follow, all right? "Nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all." All right. And so we'll probably stop right there, give you a little breather, because we're almost done with the chapter. All right, just to give you a little breather though, and digest this second portion here. So, Lord willing, you edify to that. I'm going to say shalom.